Talking about the nerve system next. This is the functional unit of the nerve system. Everybody say neuron.
Neuron.
These are the nerves that come off the skull. They're called cranial nerves. What are the ones that come off of your spine called? They're called spinal nerves. And by the way, I can't avoid throwing this in. As a chiropractor, what we believe is that when there's inflammation in the body and pressure on these spinal nerves that come out between the bones, then it can cause dysfunction of the muscles that are served by those. And that's what we attempt to do, is correct subluxations so that people can feel better. The highest level of the brain is responsible for sensation. What is this? Cerebrum. It's called the cerebrum. Well, this is a big page, so let's rock and roll through this page. This is the anatomy of the brain right here. Interconnecting spaces that produce and serve as a reservoir for cerebral spinal fluid. These are called ventricles. The cardiac and breathing control centers are present here. Medulla oblongata. A ventral bulb-like enlargement on the brainstem. Everybody say pons. So far, by the way, we said ventricles, medulla oblongata, and pons. This is the reflex center for eye muscles. Everybody say midbrain. The hypothalamus and the thalamus are located here. The diencephalon. And this is an interesting area that controls appetite, body temperature, water balance, endocrine, pleasure, reproductive behavior, hostility, and pain. Hypothalamus. And by the way, this is what controls the pituitary gland, which controls all your hormones. The gatekeeper to the cerebrum is called this. It's called the thalamus. This coordinates equilibrium and motor ability to produce smooth movements. That's called the cerebellum. Let's talk about the connecting place between the two hemispheres. What is that called?
Corpus callosum.
Everybody say corpus callosum. Could be corpus callosum. The frontal lobe, by the way, is your personality, and the parietals are for speech, occipital is for visual, and temporal on the sides, hearing and smelling. Let's talk about a reflex arc. There's a sensory neuron in, an interneuron, and a motor neuron out. Remember those things. Remember this: afferent in, efferent out. Sensory in, motor out. So you can actually have a reflex arc. If you put your hand in the fire, you immediately pull back. You don't have to think about that. In a second, you'll feel it. That's because it's getting to your cerebrum. But fortunately, your body's geared for lots of emergency situations. Let's talk about the eyeball. This is the outer layer of the eye. It's the white part of the eye. Everybody say sclera. This is the transparent front portion. It's called the cornea. This is the middle layer of the eye that has most of the blood vessels in it. It's called the choroid layer. This is the inner layer of the eye where the rods and cones are located. Everybody say retina? Okay. This is the area where light is usually sharply focused on your retina, and this is where you have lots of cones. Acute vision is possible because of the fovea centralis. Everybody say fovea centralis. Nobody wanted to say that. This, look up, in the up close, it's bulged out to help focus stuff, up close things. But in the distance, it's stretched out thinner. And this is called a lens. And in old dudes like me, it doesn't work good anymore. And so I have to have these trifocal system. This is a system I have. I like to think of it as a system. It's a life support system for barns, is what it is. That's what we're talking about. The beautiful part of your eye is called what? It's called the iris. And then the hole that allows light into your eyeball is the pupil. And then in the back, going out the back of your eye is the nerve. What is it called? Optic nerve. Okay. There is a water liquid in the front called the aqueous humor, and in the back there's this jelly stuff called the vitreous humor. Let's talk about the ear. Remember that the ear is a successively smaller set of funnels. Your body actually kind of can, think about it. You're sitting at the stoplight and your whole body is bumping and thumping because of the dude next to you. So you can feel this through your body. right? You can. Then you can detect it through your ear. It goes through your external auditory meatus down to your eardrum. Then it goes through 3 ear bones, malleus, incus, stapes, goes to the oval window, and then it goes into this snail thing called the cochlea. Inside of the cochlea, look up, there is a tectorial membrane that vibrates because of this vibration, and it stimulates hair cells. The membrane is called, well, the whole thing is called the organ of Corti. And the hair cells are what stimulate the cochlear nerve, the cranial nerve 8, vestibulocochlear nerve. It's the hearing nerve. And also remember this, inside of the inner ear, there are also these loops, and they have these little cupulas that can get knocked over by endolymph. Look up. Your body can detect you spinning in this direction, and in that direction. It's a 3D thing. It's like you've got a gyroscope in the middle of your head, both sides. Weird deal. You also have rocks in your head embedded in jello, so that when you go to a stoplight and you stop, you know, bow your heads please, then you kind of get this feeling of stopping. And then when you take back off, you can feel that as well. So you have specialized receptors. These are called the macula of the utricle and saccule. And it does say that in this chart. The pinna is the ear, the outer ear. That is what helps collect sound.